Someone you loved died today. Not someone you knew by name, not someone whose face you can picture, someone from 100,000 years ago in a cave in what is now northern Israel, on a day with no calendar and no word for grief. And the person standing over the body did something that had never been done before in the history of life on this planet. They dug a hole, they placed the body inside, they put a child's antler beside it, and they covered it over. Nobody told them to do this. There was no tradition to follow, no priest, no ritual passed down from a parent, no word yet for what they were feeling or what they were doing. They just knew, somehow, that leaving felt wrong. That moment in a cave called Qafzeh in northern Israel is one of the oldest intentional burials ever found, and scientists are still arguing about what it actually means. Here is the first thing that makes Qafzeh strange. When archaeologists excavated it through the 20th century, they found not just one burial, they found up to 15. Early Homo sapiens, adults and children, placed deliberately in shallow graves, their bodies carefully positioned, their fingers interwoven, hands tucked beneath their heads as if sleeping, and beside them, objects, lumps of red ochre, animal bones. In one grave, a child buried with deer antlers laid deliberately across the pelvis, objects with no practical purpose in a grave. Objects that serve no function for a body underground. The archaeologist Erela Hovers of Hebrew University spent years trying to understand what those objects meant. Her conclusion was careful, hesitant, and still controversial. Those objects, she argued, are the earliest evidence of symbolic thought we have ever found. They mean someone believed the dead were going somewhere. Somewhere those objects might be needed. That is a staggering idea. 100,000 years ago, before writing, before agriculture, before anything we think of as civilization, someone standing in a cave already understood that existence might continue past the moment it appears to end. But here is where the story refuses to stay simple. Qafzeh was not alone. About 20 miles away, in a cave called Skhul on the slopes of Mount Carmel, archaeologists found 10 more burials from roughly the same period. One of them stopped researchers cold. A man laid in the earth, his arms cradling the jaw of a wild boar, not dropped there by accident, held there deliberately placed. And here is the thing that changes everything about this story. The people buried at Skhul were not all the same kind of human. The Levant region, 100,000 years ago, was not a place of one species quietly evolving in isolation. It was a crossroads. Early Homo sapiens moving up from Africa, Neanderthals ranging down from Europe, possibly hybrid populations occupying the space between. And the evidence from the caves suggests something that scientists are still debating with force and energy right now. Both groups buried their dead. Neanderthals, long dismissed as too primitive for ritual, too simple for symbolic thought, were placing their own dead into the earth in caves across the same region at roughly the same time. Shanidar Cave in Iraq, La Chapelle aux Saints in France, La Ferracie in the Dordogne. Dozens of confirmed or strongly suspected intentional burials, some with grave goods of their own. So who invented burial? Who first understood that the dead deserved something more than being left behind? The honest answer is, we don't know. And the more the evidence accumulates, the more it seems like the question itself might be wrong. In July 2025, a new site was announced. Tinshemet Cave in Israel, dated to approximately 100,000 years ago, with burials so well preserved that archaeologists could see the position of individual fingers, hands clasped together beneath a skull as if arranged with care. What preserved them was ash, thick layers of it, from fires burned repeatedly in the same cave for what researchers believe were ritual purposes. Someone came back to this place, again and again. Not to eat, not to sleep, to burn something near the dead. The researchers noted that the burial practices at Tinshemet looked remarkably similar to those at Qafzeh and Skhul, despite the possibility that different human species had used all three sites. The rituals were converging across species lines, across biological differences that we treat today as defining. Think about what that means for a moment. Two different kinds of human, who probably feared each other, who competed for the same resources, who may have occasionally killed each other, were performing the same ritual over their dead. Not because they were taught the same tradition, because they arrived independently or through contact at the same conclusion, that the dead matter, that something is owed to a body after the moment it stops moving. Here is the question that follows from all of this, and it is the question that makes these caves more than archaeology. Why? An animal that dies and is left behind takes nothing from the group. Burying a body requires time, physical effort, tools. In a world where every calorie matters and every hour not spent hunting or foraging is a cost, burial is expensive. It offers the living nothing practical in return. So why did it happen? Why did it spread? Why did two entirely different species, in the same narrow strip of land, apparently arrive at the same answer to the same question at the same time? The psychologist Sheldon Solomon spent decades studying what researchers call terror management theory, the idea that human culture, religion, art, and meaning are all responses to a single terrifying awareness that no other animal is known to share. The awareness that you will die, that you know you will die, and that you know it right now even when nothing is threatening you. Solomon's research, built on decades of experimental work, suggests that everything humans create, every monument, every belief system, every story told around a fire, is at some level a response to that awareness, a way of managing the terror of knowing the ending. If that theory is right, then the burials at Qafzeh and Skhul aren't just graves. They are the first evidence we have that something had already switched on inside the human mind that has never switched off since. The awareness of mortality, and the refusal to simply accept it without doing something. The child buried with antlers, the man holding a boar's jaw, the fingers interwoven, hands beneath the head. These were not accidents. These were not instinct. These were choices, made by beings who understood what had happened, felt something about it they could not yet name, and reached for the only response available to them. They made the moment mean something. You do this too. Every funeral you have ever attended, every grave you have ever stood beside, every photograph you have kept of someone who is no longer alive, every story you have ever told about someone after they were gone. You are doing exactly what the person in the Qafzeh Cave did 100,000 years ago, with no tradition to follow and no word for what they felt. You are refusing to let it mean nothing. And the most striking thing about the evidence from those caves is not the antlers or the ochre or the carefully positioned hands. It is the ash, the evidence that people came back, that the ritual did not end at the moment of burial, that someone returned to that place again and again and burned something in the dark near the place where the person used to be. 100,000 years ago, in a cave with no name, someone felt what you have felt, and they did something about it. That is where your rituals come from. That is where your funerals come from. That is where the part of you that cannot simply walk away from the end of something, the part that keeps returning, that keeps burning the ash, that keeps placing the antler in the grave, even when no one else understands why, comes from. It comes from a cave in Israel, 100,000 years old, where someone did something for the very first time and never stopped.